At 6 o'clock, you ready to start? Good, we're live, okay. We'll call meeting to order at Lee County Board of Education. I didn't look, is there an invocation listed in there?
No.
There's not? Okay, I'll do it. Bow with me. Father, thank you for the opportunity we have to meet tonight. May you grant us wisdom and discernment so that we make the best decisions that are in the best interest of our students, staff, faculty, our parents, citizens of Lee County. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. You have the agenda before you. Really only 2 items there. If you're going to adopt that agenda by consent. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. Dr. Miller, is there anything specific you want to address on that?
Yes, sir. It's a brief agenda that includes 8 recommendations for employment, 8 resignations, 1 correction to a previous agenda, 2 fundraisers, and 4 out-of-state or overnight field trips.
All right. What is the pleasure of the board as it relates to the consent agenda? Have a motion from Ms. Lang. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. McDowell. Is there any discussion?
I see that 2 bus drivers are on there. Is that, it's not good, obviously.
Yes, sir. We need all the drivers we can get, so we have some that are retiring.
So were they like, you knew they were coming?
They've been here a long time.
Oh, okay.
They've driven for many years, so we're gonna miss them. We need all the drivers we can get, but we understand, sometimes people need to retire or resign to do something different, which is, we wish them the best.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Discussion item we have tonight is the public hearing on the proposed budget. Dr. Mills, is there anything you want to say before Mr. Kelly dives in with his presentation?
Well, I would just say that state law, as you know, requires 2 public hearings concerning the tentative budget for 2022 and before the board votes on the budget. So today is the first of the hearing, with the next set for Monday, June 14th at 5 p.m. Gary Kelly will provide an overview of the budget and answer any questions.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Kelly, the floor is yours.
All right, with the budget. Page 1 is the aggregate level, and that's the level at which the board approves, and that's by function. But the pages y'all have behind it will go down to object level. But this is the function level, which deals with like instruction. I'm gonna go through each one of those. The total budget, when somebody asks you what the total budget is, you look at the total expenditures of $77.7 million. That's what we would say our budget is, $77.7 million. A budget from one year to the next usually increases a little over $2 million. This one's a little bit about 4, but if you'll notice, the 3rd column is capital projects. That's the bus yard. We didn't have any capital projects in the last year. So that's a positive in that we're able to do that. But I'm gonna go through each one of these on a separate page. Like if you flip over to page 2, local revenue. And I got the one without the letters, without my notes. The majority of that is our local taxes. The ad valorem taxes for bond and general M&O, and then our SPLOST is coming in there, and I've got it split. If you look between the debt service and the capital projects, with the increase in the SPLOST money, we will only need about $1.9 million to service the debt on the existing SPLOST, and the $2.2 million will be going into capital projects to help with capital projects. So most years, every bit of that goes into debt service, so that's a major change. That's a good change this year. But it's always budgeted in debt service. This year we're going to have a little bit for capital projects. State revenues, on page 3, the majority of this is our QBE funding formula that we get based on each child, it's FTE funded. That is a state funding formula. I don't know if y'all been through the classes on how the state funding formula works, but basically each child is worth a certain amount of money, and you know, it's a factor of FTE and what categories they're in. We get about $40 million from the state revenue. Federal revenues is our page 4. Most of this is food service, but it is Title I and 6B. Now you'll notice I don't have any money in here for the CARES Act. All that money that we got for the CARES Act actually came in this year. And all we knew that we were gonna get at the start of this year was like $637,000. And that was used to offset the state reduction. But we actually ended up getting a lot more federal money. And I don't have it in this budget because we got the majority of the money in this year, in the year we're in. And it has its strings attached, so every revenue and expenditure. I'm gonna let you talk about what we're doing with the federal CARES money.
With CARES 1, as Gary said, provided $637,933, and that was used to offset the state budget reduction of 4% that we had this year. If you'll recall, originally it was set at 10%, and then the revenues for the state came in better than expected. So the state reduced that down to 4%. The money was very helpful for us in offsetting that loss of revenue. It did not come in time to cover the expenditures we made for COVID, things like PPE, hand sanitizer, all the things we did. We spent
Shields was the biggest cost. The face shield, the shields that we put on.
The desk shields and other things like that. So it helped us with that. CARES 2 came in at
Excuse me, what was CARES 1, how much was it?
$637,933. CARES 2 was $2,863,940. That money, we used part of it to offset the money we spent on the pandemic. Floor markers, signage in the buildings, face masks, shields for the teachers, things like that. We put hand sanitizers mounted on all the buses. We spent a lot on nursing equipment, things like thermometers, so we did temperature checks. So that helped us offset some of the costs that wasn't planned that we had. Also, a good portion of that money was used to purchase technology, in particular Chromebooks. When the pandemic came, we did not have enough devices to provide one to every student when we shut down March, April, May last spring. We're not at a one-to-one level. So with the CARES 2 money, we were able to address that need. And now we're in a position, or we will be coming into next school year, where we have enough devices for at a one-to-one level, so that every child, in the event that there was ever another shutdown, we don't think there'll be one, but if there were, we could revert to the full virtual learning, or at least have a device for that purpose. CARES 3, there's really not a CARES 3, it's ESSER or American Recovery Plan funds came in at $4,180,801. So all total, this is $8,555,360. We've not budgeted all of the CARES 3 money. We're trying to follow 3 basic guidelines with our use of these expenditures. Is we will not waste money. In other words, spend it just to spend it. We have time to make the best decision. When I say we have time, this money is available through September of 2023. Is that
The third one is.
The third
I
one.
mean, they have
Here's
different
three.
ranges.
Yeah, ARP. And then, we'll be strategic. We'll make the most of this money for our students, and that's our goal. And so we are budgeting the ARP funds to, help us improve teaching and learning, in particular, providing resources. We're still looking at technology opportunities. We've sought to gather input from our teachers and staff. And I had a meeting with a group of parents today to get their input on this, and we'll make that help us guide us through this process of spending this money and doing it wisely so that it benefits our students.
So how much have we received so far?
Have we received, we have
That you put in,
not a penny because we aren't completely through with all our budgets, but we have spent a lot of it. I'm expecting to get the majority, like probably, let's see, $3 million by the end of the month, or so. Right now, I don't think we've drawn down anything except from some of those vocational, there's some small vocational funds.
this on 1 and 2 or just on 3?
We haven't done anything on 3 yet.
Okay, but you have on 1 and 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you depleted all of that?
No, because a lot of it's allocated for summer school. That was the what do you call that?
Loss of learning, with ARP, that's 3. 20% of that has to go for loss of learning. So that's things like summer school. Our kindergarten students are gonna have, a term we've used is boot camp. That's not the best term maybe, but it's kind of a 2-week preschool, kind of an introduction to school opportunity for our rising upcoming kindergarten students. So we're gonna spend money on those things. We're also using funds to pay for teachers for summer school. We think there'll be an ongoing use of funds for things like after-school program. That was one of the things that we did away with when we had the austerity reduction several years ago. When I was still a principal, we used to have an after-school program and summer school, and we greatly reduced that opportunity, and we're wanting to bring that back to address the loss of learning.
So basically, CARES 1 and 2 will show up in the amended budget for this year when you do the final prep, and then 3 as we draw down for these specific purposes in
Well,
this year's budget.
The main thing that we can't. Okay, I didn't put it in here basically because I can't touch it because it's got to be supplemental. It's not something that we use. And I hope that we get benefit of some of this money, but so basically, I'm not including it in here because I don't know how it was going to be budgeted, and but we did spend. We have bought 1,308, and I don't know what was it, Chromebooks. So a lot of it's. Ask George Falls how much we spent because he's delivering the crap. But yeah. So, on to page 5. This is our expenses. Instruction, and this makes up the majority of our budget. Is $44 million, and it's 432.9 teachers and 2 JRTC instructors. That's going to be the majority of any school system's budget. And then if you'll look at the 200 object code employee benefits, just for instruction, we spend $14 million on employee benefits. And that's because of health insurance is $11,340. FICA is 7.65%, and then teachers' retirement is about 20% of the teacher's salary. And for the school systems behalf, the rest is the operations is like $2 million for supplies and materials and textbooks and computers and everything instructional. Page 6, pupil services. Pupil services is gonna be our OT, PT, counselor, psychologist, family service coordinators. Actually, the counselors is in 1,000, they moved those to 1,000, so counselors are not in that, in 2,100, but it is anything to assist with student instruction on the student's behalf. Page 7 is improvement of instructional services. This is more of staff development, curriculum, Susan's office, staff development, when people go to workshops back in the old days. I haven't changed the amount that we have in there for travel of $100,000. In COVID, we have not been spending that, but typically, and I don't want to pull something out of the budget that's just because we're not doing it. That helps to fund other things, but maybe when things lift, we'll get back to spending on staff development. Page 8, educational media services. This is going to be your media specialist and your library materials. $81,000 at the bottom is where we donate to the public library. Page 9, general administration. This would be the superintendent's office, and where we pay for legal, insurance, and our general liability insurance, and the board board members. Dues and expenses down the bottom. I think that's going to be legal, but it's going to be when you go to workshops and registration fees and fees to GSPA and GSSA. 2,400, page 10, school administration. This is primarily principals, assistant principals, and secretaries of the school and their benefits. That makes up 90% of the budget in school administration. Yeah.
You want us to wait to the end to ask questions?
No, go ahead.
All right, so all that stuff you're going through, I
Don't
think-
jump to the end on the changes.
Well, that's all that matters to me.
Okay.
But no, you're in that department, so
Okay.
like,
Okay.
so the increase in school administration supplement increase and nurse scale increase, $110,000. Where is that on, what page is that on,
Okay.
and what is that for?
That's in, half of, or majority of it's in here, and the nurses is in 2,100, so the other portion would be in there under the code of nurses. But those were the only two real salary increases that we addressed this year, and that's why I brought those out. If, normal step increases fall in another line.
Okay.
So if we have, like, there was 8 teachers, so that's why
I got that.
Yeah.
But what about, what's the $110,000 supplement increase, administration
that was-
supplement increase?
We changed every middle school to primary school principal supplement
Okay, I remember.
and assistant
I got
principal.
you. So, and I didn't mean to skip ahead, I thought you were in
No,
the
that's
right
fine.
block, I just saw that.
No.
Okay.
No, I just go through each page and then I go to changes, so that's fine.
I'm sorry.
2,500, page 11, that's my office, and the girls in my office. And then our software that we have now, web-based software, about $60,000. Something that we do our online purchase orders now, we didn't do before. 2,600, maintenance and operation. This is Franklin's department, so you got your custodians and maintenance department, and energy. $1.3 million. First is professional services. Let me see, where is that? The water and sewer and cleaning services. Those are just large numbers. I mean, and if you come look at the electricity bill from the high school, you'll know why that's $1.3 million for energy. But page 13, student transportation. This is our bus drivers, monitors, mechanics, transportation director, gas, electricity. I'm not electricity, but calm down here. The insurance on the buses. So, and then the purchase of buses. We get money from the state to purchase about a half of a bus, so we get two. They say they fund 2 buses, but 2 buses cost a lot more than what they give us. So 2800 central support. This would be Kevin's department, and
I think to get that money for the buses, we have to buy them.
we buy the buses and then you send them paperwork, the invoice basically.
Got it.
And our public relations director is in the budget for 2800.
So the pupil instruction that you just went, that was, I don't mean to skip ahead again, but you're in that thing, you said it went up $250,000.
And I can go back to that.
Is that, what was that in this 2,700, I guess, that I'm at? Was it the purchase of the buses?
Pupil transportation 204. Let me flip back and see what I changed. I increased 59.5 on computer software, and that's because we now have that software program that keeps up with the buses where they're at all the time.
Yeah, I see, I saw something.
I had a budget, we never
Okay.
had, 25,000 in, energy cost and 120,000 I increased for buses, to buy more buses.
Okay, so that's what.
So,
Gary, on this, transportation,
Sure.
I know that we went up on the amount we were paying people to drive, you know, the coaches and those people. Is that going to be a permanent part of this budget?
I hope not, but it's not included in this budget. All we done, that was for 2 weeks.
Well, I knew it was, I just didn't know if we were going to continue, you know, paying coaches to drive those short routes, additional money.
We hope not that they don't deserve to be, deserve remuneration, but not at that level. We're just in an emergency trying to finish this school year out because we have several drivers who are out for different reasons. So we appreciate them helping us out. And our hope is that we'll have enough drivers next year to not need that.
Did we have a lot of coaches driving?
I don't know the number. I know of two that Mr. Haynes and I discussed, and I know we have two that already help us out, and I think there were a couple more that pitched in, and even some administrators. Mr. Holt has stepped in for us on many occasions and driven some trips for us as well, and we were really we didn't have a driver, so.
We greatly appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you have a CDL?
Man and many hats.
Yes, and Mr. Hank Wright, the athletic director, and I can't name all of them, but Mike Pollitt, who works in maintenance and operations.
Mike Powell.
Mike Powell, he's been great to step in.
Johnny Golden actually drives.
Johnny's driven for us, so we really, our, people in the office, bus drivers, bus mechanics have stepped in to help us make sure we can cover our routes.
Go back on to page 15, other support services, and this is the membership to the RISA. And that amount has not changed, I don't think, since I've been here. There's $7,000 in addition to that amount that would pay in 2210, which is improving instructional services, which is our contribution to them for staff development type activities. Okay. 3100 food service, page 16, that is food service operations. And we basically, all kids are going to be eating free next year, but I told them to keep our budget kind of the way it was, and so in relation to local, you lose it. If you, you basically, there's a year of my comparison stuff, so when we go back to paying for it locally, I want to see that in the budget. But just realize that the money is going to be the same, although it's budgeted more for local sales, and the local sales will be less, the federal revenue will be more. But I wanted to keep the budget like it's been, so that year to year. Does that make sense?
So how much is that? That amount?
You gotta go back to
So
the.
basically, 1.6 million is in the budget, it's gonna be spent, but it ain't.
No, 1.6, where are we at?
Well, that's what James said,
That's the first.
I don't know if it's right or not, I just.
Look on the.
I mean, you're saying we're gonna spend it, but.
No,
we're
they
not spending
did, they did actually drop them, never mind. The, no, the student sales, they didn't, the 767, the 65, and the 74.9 that's in the special revenue on page 2. It's the local revenue.
Right.
Those funds will be replaced by federal dollars because all kids are eating free.
Right.
However, I wanted to keep that amount in the budget because next year when we go back to local revenues, I mean, it would be all right, I had to sit here and I'm having to do what I want to do was explain why the local revenues went down and the federal revenue went up, but that's
So that money can be sitting there this year or whatever, but it won't be, we won't have to spend it till the year after.
right.
Next
So,
year.
next, we will not receive any of this, the federal government will pick it up. But what I'm saying is, and when we do the 22 budget,
Yeah.
if we drop it this year, you'd say, why the local revenue?
I'm fine.
So she's basically still running at a wash.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all.
Gary, why are we gonna eat free next year? Is it because?
Because the federal government, Donna, we're getting $8.5 million from the federal government. I don't know how we're gonna pay this back, but that's why we're getting free.
Well,
Is everybody getting free
yes,
in Georgia?
the whole country, is my understanding.
Oh, the whole country.
Yes, ma'am. The
Yes,
United States-
ma'am.
the United States Department of Agriculture extended free meals. They set it up for this year because of the pandemic, and with so many, over half the schools in our nation didn't have in-person learning until right here at the end of the year. And so with the concern about kids being out of school and then the summer, they've extended it through next year as a way to help families out.
So we're going to provide meals over the summer?
No, ma'am, we're not. There's no plan for that right now. We will have meals provided like for summer school, the kids that are attending, but not the, where we had like people could come pick up or we took buses. We won't do that again this summer.
Are other counties doing that?
I think some are, yes, ma'am.
Because they have a higher free and reduced rate, or what?
I believe that is part of it. We didn't have a great deal of participation in our program. Every week it would go down a little bit, and it never got to zero participation, but it just wasn't a high level of participation when we did that last summer during the pandemic.
That possibly could have been because of inconsistencies, because when I went, and I think Claire did too, didn't you go on the bus? I mean, we didn't have any problems, but I know that it was, we weren't consistent in going, like every Tuesday or Thursday.
Yes, ma'am. Well, what we saw was that whatever the level of participation was, it declined each week. And we were having to find ways to give away food that had been prepared.
Last time I was there was like that, we were trying to get bags together and send them out to make calls.
We tried it both ways with delivery and then with the pickup, and we ran into the same issue. Participation wasn't to the level that we anticipated. So it was, we don't see the need for it this summer. We certainly will provide meals for our summer school programs as we always do. Have that available.
Would there be areas in Lee County that would maybe benefit by us doing that at all? Maybe Smithfield, just because it's very rural? I mean,
Potentially, but again, like we did, even there, we didn't see the participate. We took a bus there and to provide meals and just didn't have a lot of participation. I don't have the records in front of it. I can show you. So we went there, we went several places throughout the county, kind of strategically placed to try to get meals out to folks.
Do any of the county maintain pantries, or they mostly take the buses out to deliver?
It varies by the county. Different counties do different things.
Florida County partners with different organizations in town where they can deliver meals to folks come to those community centers to get,
They have school buses going door to door around my office.
Right, and I think they had a lot of success with that. But some communities are moving forward and some aren't. We're in, the food service, our school food service team, they're talking to other communities and looking at models. One thing that we've had to do, and Gary may have to clarify this, but we've had to, we don't earn enough federal funds to offset the cost of our school food service program. So we're one of there's not many school systems in the state in that situation. And so we have to have enough meals provided to keep our heads above. We're in a normal year. This year, obviously, because of the free meals for all, and next year it's not the situation. But going forward, like Gary's talking about, we're going to have to be able to keep our head above water in terms of operating school food service program.
The one question I got is still listed $1.6 million in food purchase in your 3,100 food service.
We still have to buy food. I mean, it's to prepare it. We're just, the kids aren't paying us for the food. So that's purchased food that we actually buy. But the revenue comes in from the federal government, and this is expense. We have the actual expense.
We'll be bringing those.
Page 17, community services. This is our after-school program, and if you'll notice in 615, expendable equipment, that is not an expense of the community service operation of the after-school program. That's usually the profit that they make, and we use that money to enhance school campuses with playground equipment, other stuff. I mean, at the end of the year, when principals come to me and say, I'd like to do this or something, like getting money for that, that's usually where I take it from. 4,000 capital outlay, that's 100% at the bus yard. It should be the exact numbers off the bid open. Page 19, debt service. This is our debt service payments for next year. It'll be about $3.9 million. And down below you can see what our outstanding debt is by fiscal year. So we've got 8.6 in the general obligation bonds and 5.7 in the SPLOST bonds. The SPLOST bonds will be paid off 100% next year in 23, not 22, 23, the year after next. But we'll still have 8.6 in general obligation bonds. Well, it'd be 7.6 after next year. Okay, page 20, this is a summary of the, it didn't change pages on my thing. Anyway, this is a recap of salaries, benefits, operations, capital, and it's by function. And basically it shows you how much each function makes up of the budget and how much salaries and benefits make up of the budget. And salaries and benefits comprise 78% of the budget with capital projects included and debt service. But if you take the debt service and the capital projects out, it's 85% of our budget, salary and benefits. Page 21 is every object code in the budget and what that line item takes up of the total budget. Page 22 is a breakdown of salaries, and if you'll notice that of total salaries, teachers, it looks like 55.89, but they have to, you've got teacher salary of 118. Music, art, and PE is broke out separate, so you have to add those two together. So teachers make up over 60% of the total salaries. Page 23 is a chart, basically shows what percentage of our revenues is federal and state and local. When I first started with the school system, the state made up closer to 80%, and it's now 60%, and that's because they have pushed employee benefits to us. They did not get, as the transportation program cost increase, they're still funding transportation at the level they did when in 1980 something. I mean, so we're not really, they don't change the factors in the QBE formula to keep up with today's cost, but
I think it's, I think it's about 12% of the cost of transportation. Most of that is
State or federal?
state, most of the cost is local.
But the replacement portion we were getting that was for federal, wasn't it, on buses?
no.
All of the state.
And basically, we've been buying buses with SPOS money. Page 24 is a pie chart of how our operations is made up. Direct instruction. If you look back at the 1,000, which is instruction, you got to add to that 2,100, 2,210, and 2,220, which is your pupil services, your improvement of instructional services, and your media. Those all go into that, and that's why if you look at what direct instruction is compared to 1,000, they'll be different. And on page 25 is a summary of the changes in the revenues, and basically, as noted, our SPOS increased significantly, and it made an increase of about $600,000 based on the change that happened. The increase in QBE funding is 2.7, and that's normal based on the FTE growth and what we're getting teachers. I said here, I did not include the CARES funding in 22, but last year 632 was budgeted. That was our original one, and throughout the year, I mean, it didn't get in there. I didn't have any idea that kind of money was coming from the federal government. Page 26, comparison of the budgets from expenditure standpoint. I mean, we went through this a little bit ago, but I mean, we added 8 teachers. That's an interventionist in there, and most of it's special ed. School administration supplement and nurse increase, and other net increases. That's just a step increases for everybody. Teachers' retirement is going up 0.8%, 0.80%. Anyway, it's $303,000.
For the teachers or for us, Gary?
Our portion.
Our portion.
Now, the teachers, I mean, they don't change the employee rate. It stays, it's 6%. So, we went through the pupil transportation changes, and what I changed in the maintenance. Let me look at that real quick. If we went through transportation. Increased other purchase services by $100,000 and supplies by $100,000 based on what we were actually spending. I mean, we've increased some. And like with the capital outlay, we didn't have anything last year. Interest goes down every time you make payments on, or you retire bond principal, so our interest goes down a little bit each year. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Unless you have any questions.
Gary, I do.
Okay.
And this is just, me kind of skimming the top and looking at the projected budget. It's an increase of $4.4 million.
Increase?
Mhm.
Yeah. 2.7 of that is bus shop.
Yeah.
And then I realized.
2.5.
And then the revenue increase is 2.8, so we're looking at a deficit of about 1.6 million?
No,
Is that
no,
right?
we made a transfer in capital, and also our SPOS money's increased, so I mean, we made a transfer last year in the capital projects because of the money from savings from the code, so it will be eaten into that, yes. But
But I mean, just on this sheet of paper.
on this sheet of paper, yes, it looks like
a $1.6 million deficit. And so
that we
we're
would take
pulling-
from fund balance, from prior year fund balance. We're funding a portion of that with fund balance.
Okay, and we're pulling from what we saved during COVID and our increase in the SPOS revenue
Mhm.
to cover that 1.6?
No, from 2.5 million in the.
2.5, yeah, the SPOS is gonna be covered by it.
2.8, yes,
The 2.8 is, okay, if you look at the difference in the revenue,
increase.
yeah, 2.7. Subtract away from that the $600,000 that we increased for the state, the $600,000 for the SPOS increase.
Mhm.
You're at $2.1 million revenue, additional revenue. So now if you go back over here and take the 4.4 million increase in expenditures and subtract the 2.5, you're pretty much in line with the revenues is going up in line with the expenditures.
Okay, it just still is kind of showing that deficit on this sheet of paper.
Sure.
Okay. So I knew we were pulling it from somewhere because I can't pull it off that sheet.
Didn't we discuss salary increase for this coming up year?
We did for the assistant principals and principals and the nurses, but that's the only ones. And this year, the governor, really when we discuss an increase is when the governor gives the teachers more money. We can't give, now we can do for non-certified, but we can't make an impact on what we pay teachers of any significant without a material commitment from our tax dollars. So.
Well, he said he was initially gonna fund about, was it $5,000?
Originally $5,000 and they
he's
got
done
3 of
one,
it.
So he's still got 2,
He's got
that'll
2
probably come out
Yeah,
in the next
that,
2 years.
that will be in the 23 budget.
So basically, it's, they have got a set salary schedule, and we can't really increase that. Now, what we can increase is the supplement that we give,
Right.
but that is not part of retirement, isn't that correct?
No, it is, it becomes part of it.
Does it, I mean, the state recognizes,
Yeah,
the
this-
supplement is part of your retirement?
They do, the amount that we gave on the governor deal, that was excluded.
Yeah, that's.
But no, your supplement, it's just like when you're a principal, that supplement you got for a principal is included in your retirement. So, I mean, it's the same for a teacher.
Should we be looking in that for retaining and attracting
Bus driver?
all?
Well, we changed when we went to a strategic waiver system. The schedule now is technically the Lee County school system schedule. Whereas before, just like Don talked about, it was a state set schedule. Now, what we did was basically mirror the state schedule, change the title. But technically speaking, you could do what you're talking about, but when you shift 1% on $60 million, it goes back to that material change that he's talking about. So yes, we can, and it's just a matter of how we want to get selective to do that. Because again, just in the gross numbers, if you had an increase of 1%, you're, what's that, $6 million?
Corey Kirby loves to tell y'all that the state salary scale is no longer in its, but the state funding formula is based on.
That's true. That is true.
But to make it, I mean, if you look at giving teachers $1,000 raise, I mean, right now, there's 430 certified employees, so that's $430,000 right there.
Or is that in here?
It ain't, I'm just saying that, we're talking hypothetical.
But we did give $1,000 raise.
Yeah, but the governor paid for that.
Okay, yeah.
And he paid for that using the state's ESSER CARES money, so that
Okay.
that was how that, and that was sent to us to pass on to our teachers and
One thing that we can do with that Esser's money is a local $1,000 to teachers in addition to the $1,000 they own. I mean, or you could do $1,000 for all employees or whatnot. Just however we budget that money. I mean,
It just seems like every month on our consent agenda, we have resignations usually outnumbering recommendations. And it's just, you know, we need to look at that because our numbers are dwindling.
Right.
And, you know, we're gonna get to where we've got more students in the classrooms and, you know, so I just think we really need to look into that and figure out what needs to happen.
Well,
Can
the
we
hardest-
use any of the CARES Act money?
yeah, but the problem, if you put tying that to salaries and it's gone in 2 years, you're stuck with that salary in 2 years to be a local expense. So, yeah, I mean, you can use CARES Act to help locally, but I try to tell them, please don't put that toward people, because in 2 years, are you gonna tell a person they don't have a job? Are you gonna?
Well, what if we use it as bonus instead of salary increase?
Right.
You know, look at it that way.
That's certainly an option, and we could, with that ARP money, that could be something that
Could you tie?
we do. It's called a, employee, it's a retention bonus, in a sense. You're rewarding your employees for their coming back and continuing weekly.
Sure, yeah.
And that was the purpose that Governor Kemp and the state legislature sent that money down earlier this spring. I know, that is an option for us here locally. We could look at doing something like that and it's not only, teachers, as you said, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, maintenance. We really need help in all of our areas to make sure we have, and I'll say this, I think they've done an amazing job this year. We're a day and a half from finishing a school year, and I know there've been some bumps in the road, but it has gone exceptionally well, and I credit our teachers and staff for that, and our leaders in the schools.
Jason, what problem areas do we have in hiring teachers? I mean, I know it's math and science and.
Well, sure, that's, you know, and Claire's talked about this before, when there's only 3 math graduates coming from some of our universities, that's a real challenge area. But, what we're seeing is fewer people majoring in education, where when I graduated, it was probably like 25% of college majors were in education, and now it's something along the lines of 5 or 10%, so that there's fewer people going into teaching and education. So we certainly got to work on that area, and then.
So what are the numbers? It's a significant percentage of new teachers within 5 years are no longer in education.
Yes, something like a fourth or a third of them are leaving within a short time.
Yeah.
Now, we do benefit because we have people who come from other professions in the teaching. And that's wonderful, but we do need to.
And we do a lot of 50% people. I mean, we can get 2 people to make 1 position.
Right, 49%, that's where a teacher retires and then can come back, and so we use some of those positions to help out. We hired some interventionists this year, using some of we're now a district-wide Title I school system, so that allowed us to help out, and those teachers provide additional instructional support in the lower grades. So that's a good thing, but that is a good thought, I think, you know, with this,
How can we make it go from a thought to fruition?
Well,
Well,
I think one thing the governor tried to do, Jamie, was as an incentive, anyone that had retired, you could come back, and it used to be, when you came back, they took away your retirement and you just went on a regular salary. In order to encourage people, you can come back, you keep your retirement, and you go on a full teacher salary. Now, I don't know if we've had any people do that, but.
You gotta sit a year.
You do, you have to sit up, and it might even be waived now, Garrett,
Okay.
because there is a critical shortage. And there's a critical shortage in early childhood, which is like, you know, I mean, there's always kind of been an understanding in the languages and the maths in high school, you know, are critical because they can go, a math person can go into the outside community and use those skills instead of being a teacher. But to really start seeing, you know, the deficit in early childhood is huge because that's just what people go into. They just go into the younger children.
Yes, but I've seen that we've spent tremendous amounts of money on the facilities and, you know, I feel like what we need to do is start investing in more in our teachers to, you know, just an incentive to not only stay here, but to come here. Because I mean, I see every day almost a bus is late or they're doubling up because of bus drivers. I hear about teachers, you know, and how hard it is. So I think as a board and as administration, we really need to work together to try to do something. And like I said, even now, we've got money some money that we can use for a couple of years. I feel like we need to.
Well, I would like, if you do that, let's call it an incentive, and so it's one time, it's not like part of their.
Can you do signing bonuses with it? Are any schools doing that?
Sure, you can do it. I
Like
mean,
for the
it's
critical
all in how you
positions?
write your plan for the CARES Act and get the state to approve it.
I think you could dangle that carrot and sign. Keep in mind too, with the facilities and some of that we're doing, that's all different. It's all different, let's call it pots of money. Just like, the problem with SPOS is you can't use it on daily operations. It's designated capital outlays. If there was some relief there somewhere.
Well, it's designated by us, correct? Don't we?
No,
SPOS is
SPOS is state
Operation by
mandated.
state mandated. Quite frankly, from my perspective, I don't think it's a good incentive to do that either, because just as soon as we move SPOS dollars to maintenance and operation, you will be amazed at how rapidly the state funding falls out too.
Yep. Exactly.
So I get the need for it and wish we could have some relief, but I'm telling you now, we got the state to approve our ability to use those funds for maintenance operation. That, what did you say the percentage of state dollars was we get today?
60, went down to 80, from 80, it'd probably be down to 40.
Go down
But
very
now,
fast.
I would much rather use that CARES Act money, and not close your eyes, here, to fund an incentive for the bus drivers, to hire bus drivers, than to pay the coaches to what we're paying them at the end of the year. I mean, that.
I agree.
Mhm.
Coach, you got us out of jam for that time, but I think we got time to plan for that by
Mhm.
next school term to get some incentive for those bus drivers to get here.
But teacher as well.
Absolutely.
So we're struggling
That's just
there.
one category, but yeah.
Well, we have most of our positions filled for next year, and the ones that are open, we feel like will be filled. There's some that will be more challenging than others to fill. It's May, so typically over the summer, sometimes teachers, their spouse gets transferred, or, so we don't know that part of it yet. But, you know, from year to year, we're usually able to fulfill our positions.
What was the thing
It's a
y'all added
challenge
last
with
year?
our young people. You know, I've go to these recruitment things. I don't go all the time, but sometimes I'll go, and you know, we're in Southwest Georgia. A lot of the young people want to go to Atlanta or North Georgia, or over on the coast. So because there's more.
The thing y'all added last year, Jason, look, like the teachers that's coming down here in training, that we
The teacher internship, which is a great program, we're partnering with Georgia Southwestern, and we're actually have student teachers who are doing their student teaching, but with the understanding that if they fulfill their requirements through partnership, they will become full-time teachers for us. So that's a great incentive because it ensures that we, and we got a couple really good young math teachers that way this year. So we feel like that's one positive to help us moving forward. The things like Donna talked about, foreign language is really tough. There's not a lot of people that can do that, and so that's a challenge, but we're working towards that.
The other trick is like you said, it's gonna be getting more students to go into those fields, cause just the overall shortage, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. You're having teachers retire out faster than you can replace them, so it's gonna take some creativity.
Well, we have 10 of our own Lee County high graduates, seniors, that are gonna go in, that have declared they had their educational signing days, so they're gonna be educators, and we hope they'll think about us and remember us. And we do get a lot of our own who graduate and come back to teach, and we're very thankful for that. Hopefully that's one avenue. I do know school systems pay additional money. It's just that we have to, that 1%, as Frank was talking about, that's a pretty big commitment long term. And it's not that the teachers aren't worth it, we just gotta be thoughtful about how to do that. One thing this y'all have done, the board has done, is we've reduced class size, and we've really made a good mark in that direction. We're trying to invest more and more instruction, and we want to improve the conditions for teachers. So where the SPLOST helps is we have nice facilities, clean facilities, up to date, modern, and we're continuing to work on that. So that's a good selling point for our schools. So hopefully we can take all those pieces of the puzzle and continue to sustain the excellence that we had for a long tradition of, and keep it moving forward.
All right, any other questions of Mr. Kelly or Dr. Miller? As always, after the meeting, I'm sure your review of this will bring other things to mind. Please feel free to reach out to Dr. Miller, Mr. Kelly, to get those answered. We have another meeting right before our next board meeting on June the 12th. That meeting is at 5, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
June 14th.
June 14th, sorry. All right. If there's no other matters before us, I will